Hey guys, I'm Brian. She's Brenda on YouTube at New Life Recovery. Brenda, welcome.
Oh, hello, Brian. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. A little throwback to Mr. Rogers there.
Yeah, okay. Happy and cheery morning. We both got our coffee, but we're talking about a deep subject today, grief,
Yes.
grief and loss. And I think it's something that touches absolutely everybody, right?
It touches you whether you have a soft heart or a hard heart. Whether you got a purple heart or a black heart, we all know the feeling of loss to some degree. So,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone.
So right before Father's Day, as you know, my father-in-law passed away, which was really hard. Like it hit us harder than I thought it would. But since then, my father-in-law passed, my aunt, my mom's sister passed, her son, so my cousin passed, and then my dad's brother passed, all since Father's Day.
Oh
And
my gosh.
and now, as you know, we were just talking, my mom's going through it. She's in stage 4 of a terminal disease, and we just don't know how much time she has left. And I think it's appropriate in recovery, in life. We talk about what are things that might lead us to or keep us in addiction. What are things that can just throw a wrench in our mental health? And that's why I think this is so worth talking about. So I'd love for you to start off, Brenda. Any practical tips? What are some things that you do? What are some things that might be helpful for us when we're like going through it and maybe we're on the verge of just F it, I'm going to use.
And whatever your choice to use is, we've all been there, especially when we feel like we're trapped and there's no place to go. Um, I lost my sister quite a few years ago, and every year on her birthday, I get very sad. And urges happen. One thing, and especially I love the way that our culture is changing. Now we're allowed to celebrate. We can make those a day of celebration and do something that they used to like to do that was fun, or maybe that you did together that was fun. I have a very, very good friend of mine fly in from Florida on my sister's birthday. Um, and it just cheers me up because I know she's coming. And it's her, have good friends, what I'm short thing, have good friends, and you will be surprised how they can help you. She comes just for 3 days, and it's perfect. But that didn't happen like right off the bat. You've got to find things. My best friend, when she graduated to heaven, because that's what I call it. She's the only person I'd ever watched a scary movie with. And so sometimes a scary movie will be released on like Netflix or whatever, and it'll be 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's not like dark. And I'll have all the windows open and the dog's on my lap, and I'll go, "Okay, Susie, here we go." And I'll watch it. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable, but then I can laugh because she laughed at all of them. No scary movie ever scared her.
Yeah.
So, my short tip and a very long explanation is you can't think about two things at once. So, when you start to get sad, they're already on your mind. Think about what used to make them happy or something you used to do together. Your mom, I don't know that she cooks. Maybe she has a favorite recipe. My grandma, she made persimmon cookies. Every Thanksgiving, my grandma is at Thanksgiving dinner because I've made her cookie recipe. So I think it's different the way that we can honor those that have gone before us. But I think it's also, and what I've had to learn is that it's a transition. It's not final. It feels final to us that are left behind, but it's not final. There's a guy Lau, and then he spells his last name TZU. I don't know. I don't know how to say it. But new beginnings are often disguised as painful endings, and that's what I think the transition of this life is. And I have it right here on my desk just so that I know whether it's a job, a person, and also please do not discount a pet. A
Wow.
pet,
So much good
it'll bring you
things.
to your knees.
So much good things you said there, Brenda. And I've talked about that just yesterday in one of my groups with my members. We were talking about this topic, grief and loss. And this woman picked up this tiny kitty, like the cutest cat in the world. And she's in group holding this little cat and petting her. And I said, whatever her name was, Michelle, you reminded me of something else. One way we can get through grief, honestly, don't discount the pets. I thought that was so good. An
Yes.
another thing you talked about, Brenda, that I think is so worth mentioning is anniversaries. So we think of grieving as, here we go. I just lost my father-in-law. Things aren't looking good for my mom. So you've already begun that grieving process. But what about every year in June when it comes up to the anniversary of my dad's death? Every year in whatever month it is, and you're grieving your sister. Those anniversaries can be hard. And one thing can be helpful, um, just being aware that, hey, this anniversary is coming up, and I know that could be a big trigger for me. Um, I love too how you said, let's just do something fun, celebrate it, because we do have to process the grief, and we think about all the good things that I remember about mom and how she made my holidays special when we were kids, things like that. Um, but why not turn it into something positive? I'm gonna make her favorite recipe. I thought those were just really good, practical, like tips. That was good.
And one thing that you're going through, Brian, that you may not realize, or you do realize because you're so stinking smart. There's a term that I learned when I was learning about grief, and it's called anticipatory grief.
Hmm.
And that's when you know it's coming. You're anticipating it, but you don't know when, you don't know what time, you don't know how, and you don't know how to process those feelings. It's coming. And that also can lead to survivor remorse. Like, how come it's happening to them and not me? So there's so many layers. Like, it's not just, okay, let me focus on this one thing. I can make the best of the time I have left with my sister, but in the background, I still have anticipatory grief. And that was hard
Right.
for me to reconcile. Like, I still have her here. Why am I not happy? It's because you can see what was happening in her face, right? Like, you
Right.
see it coming.
Well,
So I encourage you to talk to somebody about that and not the person going through it.
oh, that's so good, Brenda. And um, this is a difficult topic, guys. Like even talking about grief, let's acknowledge that it could stir emotions, because
Yeah.
we're thinking about those people. But the idea of anticipating the grief, it's it's a healthy thing. What we know is once you know that someone's terminal, you begin the grieving process. And so, boy, like you said, Brenda, there's so many facets to it. Right? We could talk all day, but when you start grieving, um, um, it, you seem to grieve less when you've known that they were gonna die rather than just they got hit by a car and it was sudden and now they're no longer with us. Because the grieving process began when you learn that news that they have this terminal thing. And so you began the grieving process. So if the grieving process is this long, um, you've already been grieving this much by time they pass, if that makes sense. So that can be a good thing. But another thing you said reminded me, we all grieve different, and that's okay. So if you're not a crier, that's okay. Boy, I wish, or when you said survivor's guilt, that's what made me think of it. And some people totally have that, and some people not at all. They're like, I get it. Some people aren't as emotional as others. Um, some
And
people,
it doesn't make them better off either way. Either way, it doesn't make them better off.
exactly.
We're, like you
Yes.
said, we're allowed to feel what we feel when we feel it or not.
Or I felt guilty because I grieved my dad so much more than my mom, or vice versa. Like, it's okay. We're in a different place in life. Yeah, so many different things. Um, I do think it's worth mentioning that one thing in the grieving process we need to watch out for is the kind of things that I'm telling myself. Like, like you said,
100%.
why, why them and not me? It should have been me. Be careful of those things, because one thing I ask myself a lot just in processing anything, what lie might I be believing? And you've probably heard me say that before. What lie might I be believing? That it should have been me, that's going to lead me to a dark spot. I can't do this. You know what? That's a lie. The truth is, this is hard. The truth is, um, this might be the most difficult thing. And what if the grief is just a divorce? I say just a divorce. Tough stuff,
Yeah.
life altering stuff. I can't do this. I can't live without him or her. The truth is, this might be the hardest thing you've ever gone through, but you can do it. You know, when my dad passed away, he died at 70, and that's kind of young. And so I remember thinking, I'm probably going to die at 70. I've always played guitar and enjoy music. And I remember thinking, I was just in a dark spot for a while. I guess I'm not going to play guitar anymore, because I guess I can't. Why learn new stuff? I'm just going to die, and we need to like be careful of that self-talk and, see a counselor if we need to. Um, and that's something that,
Counseling now has more options and has more free options than ever before in history. You can go to almost any meeting on any subject virtually for free. Pop it into Google. Pop it into Google.
yeah,
I will tell you where my mistake started is when you lose somebody, you think, oh, I'll just have a drink at their wake. I'll just have a drink with in their honor at the bar. Oh, it's the next day. It's Sunday. Oh, hey, let's go celebrate this life at this Sunday brunch with all this free champagne. You have to be careful because things can eat seek into those of us with an addictive personality at times when we're grieving that we've never had a problem with before.
yes. And
One week can become two, can become a year, can become a lifestyle if we're not careful and lead us places we don't want to go. So be careful what you let in when you're grieving too. That's what happened to me.
and I appreciate you sharing that, Brenda, because that's so many of our stories. Um, when dad passed away, I didn't deal with it 1,000% correctly and went back to some behaviors that were coping mechanisms that were antisocial and not healthy for me. And so um, I'm not excusing that, uh,
Exactly. No.
but
Yes.
two, there's an encouragement here in that one philosophy within substance abuse is there's a difference between a lapse and a relapse. And you might not know at the time which is which, but one definition of relapse that I like says going back to the same or worse condition as before. And so if that's a relapse, if I used last night and wake up and I feel so guilty and um kind of beating myself up, but that was it. I got right back up. And then I go a month without using. Now I can look back and say that was a lapse. That wasn't a relapse. I didn't go back to the same where, like you said, that's that illustration you gave, man, I did it and a day became a week, became a month. Okay, that's a relapse. And so the encouragement for us is this: um, if all these neural pathways in our brain are going right to, hey, life is hard, let's go use, my old problem solving skill. And if I gave up to that, okay, get back up, here's one thing. I'm gonna try to honor my mom's memory. I don't want my mom's passing to be the thing that led me back. My mom wouldn't want that. My mom wouldn't want to know that her passing led me to, severe drinking or a bout of pornography or whatever, gambling, whatever your compulsive behavior might be. Yeah, super good stuff.
And for those out there, if you don't have the family unit and it's your friend that you've had for 20 or 30 years, those friends become family. You're allowed to grieve, but they don't want to see you do anything bad either. They don't want to see it. I mean, I don't want to open up a can of worms here, but I'm not going to open it. Never mind. Uh, even your friends want the best for you if they're really your friends. And that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Another tool for dealing with our grief is kind of sitting with it. Like, I'm sitting with this grief and it's okay. Like, this is really hard, but that's okay. I don't always have to anesthetize the pain. In spirituality, there's this practice of fasting. And one of the um, practical applications of fasting is it helps us know that I can control my physical desires. You know, my body is saying, I want food. And I'm saying, hey, I have mastery over myself. And the same with grieving. In recovery, we have to get to the point where there's some level of comfort with discomfort. You know, life is hard and I don't always have to anesthetize the pain. And like you said, there's always things that we can do to redirect. Yesterday, I picked up the banjo. I played. Then I picked up my guitar for a little bit, and then I sat down at the piano, just made some music, you know.
And one thing I just want to throw in real quick with the age of the internet and this World Wide Web, different cultures grieve differently. And it might help you to see how other people grieve, how it's okay. Maybe you never learned how to grieve. Maybe you grew up in a house that you don't cry or I'll give you a reason to cry. Maybe you have gone to funerals where nobody cries and everybody's quiet. And the nun says, if I drop a pin, I better hear it hit the ground or somebody's getting in trouble, like it, however you grew up. Maybe just watching, I watched another culture. When I lived in LA, I went to another um, funeral, if you will. Everything was so strange to me because everything they did was different. Everything was different, but it's what they were taught and what they did. And I don't want to, it was amazing. It was amazing to watch a different culture grieve. And
Mm,
actually, it helped me
mm.
because I was there because I knew the person too, but it was a different type of release. So maybe look at how other cultures or other people say goodbye or witness the transition. And it might help you open up a different door in your head on how it might help you.
I love that. One thing that I teach and is worth repeating concerning grief, although we can use this tool for so many things, is process, ask, thank. So
Mm.
process, this is what I'm going through. So I process with you. Brenda, could we talk? I'm frustrated. I'm hurting, process with your spouse, process with a good friend, process with your pastor, process with God. God, I'm struggling. Here's what's going on. Process on paper. Some people journaling, just get it out and you feel better. But process, ask, thank. So not only process, but also request help. Um, Brenda, do you have any thoughts on this? That's kind of asking for help. Asking for help from your counselor. And I know you co-sign this as well, but we both believe so strongly counseling is for the strong. Strong people are so strong, they realize I need help and they're going to get help. And so process, but ask. If you're a spiritual person, ask God, would you intervene? I'm hurting here. There's brokenness. So process, ask, and then thank. And I try to practice this a lot. I was doing it yesterday. And I love what you said at the beginning, Brenda, how we can only think about one thing. And is my mind thinking about loss and grief and how terrible? Or what if I change that? And I'm not saying it's not important to process it because it is, but what if I change that and say, I'm grateful for the sunshine today. I'm grateful for the smell of the grass. You know, I'm grateful for my family that I have. You know, I'm grateful for my tiny little house out here in the country. You know, you
I
mentioned
do,
earlier.
and I'm grateful for my little dogs,
I
and
was
I'm
just gonna
grateful
say,
for,
you mentioned earlier your pets. I'm grateful for my little cats, cat dad, and my
yeah,
wife calls me cat dad.
that's
I'm
awesome.
I'm a proud cat dad. Yeah, yeah, good stuff. Any final words, Brenda, on grief and grieving and loss and hope?
Just that it's going to happen, and it's going to happen to all of us. But just know it's a transition, and the hope is everyone is in a better place. I know that my sister and best friend are out of pain. That's my hope. And I know that. And I'm relieved. So just find what works for you. Don't just assume what works for somebody else is going to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes be okay with not being okay, realizing it's gonna last, not last forever. Let me give one more illustration. I know we're going long today, but
Mm.
have you been in those water parks for children and you see there's the giant bucket that's filling up, and once the
Oh,
bucket
I've seen the commercials. I've seen
fills
the commercials.
all the
Yeah.
way up, then it dumps. And after it dumps, it kind of shakes and then it rewrites itself. And then it slowly fills up. And when it gets to the tipping point, it dumps over. Well, it's great for the kids, right? It dumps all this, monsoon of water on you. I think that's a good illustration for grieving. That bucket fills up and then it spills over. And we cry, and we have kind of our moment. And at the beginning, it fills up again real quick. But over time, it fills up slower and slower. Now, my dad passed away in 2009, and it's probably been years since I've cried over my dad. You know, grief really does get easier over time. But with all this going on with my mom, the other day I drove to my dad's gravesite and I had a few tears, and that bucket kind of spilled over again, and that's okay. I think there's another tool right there is tears, healthy.
If you don't cry, your soul will freeze up. Tears are antifreeze for the soul.
Mm,
People who don't know what antifreeze is, doesn't get it, but us in the Midwest, we know what antifreeze is. Okay. Tears are antifreeze for the soul. You need to hydrate so you can cry so you don't freeze up. And then the other thing that popped into my head real quick, uh, there is this line. It says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of death, I fear no evil." The active word there is walk, not sit down, not camp out, not pitch a tent, and not stay there. You have to keep walking, even when your legs feel like they're 80 pounds apiece, even when your steps are like this big, even when you're just 1 foot in front of the other, barely. Just keep walking. Everybody goes through that valley differently, but don't camp out.
mm.
Don't make it your new home. Don't give anybody a forwarding address. That's what I'm saying.
That's so good. That's so good. Guys, if this was a blessing to you, reach out. We love when people reach out in the comments. But she's Brenda. I'm Brian. Until next time, God bless you. We love you and be well.